just settle in, and wherever you are, you're right where you need to be. Take a nice deep breath. Allow that to travel up from the base of the spine all the way to the crown, and realize your more multi-dimensional self. The current moving through the collective asks healers and light workers to become radically honest about what within themselves is ready to shift. We are invited to look into the deeper waters of our desires and acknowledge what is creating tension within our lives and within the collective field. We are at that threshold where we must release ourselves from these archetypical roles. As we move beyond, this transformation may feel chaotic, yet it carries that sacred purpose of collective awakening. Through our honesty, courage, and inner listening, we remember that this shift is not about the roles that we play, but about discovering the love, clarity, and deeper truth that has always existed within us all. So with this cosmic current this week, it's get clear on what you want to shift. And I really feel this personally as well, as it's time for me to even release those archetypical roles that I've even played. And it's an inner quest. And so we're going to view this current as an inner quest. And we're going to view it a little bit differently this week. And we're going to understand this collective awakening. And as we move through it from these 4 guiding lenses, very common. It's the who, the where, the what, the why. But here it's the who. Who's that archetypal energy that is dominant for you in the story? And this will represent that aspect of self that does require awareness in order for the shift to occur, okay? So that's going to be the who. Then we're going to look at where, meaning that setting of the journey. So this is the collective energetic backdrop that's influencing our awakening. It will influence us. I mean, we're at a place where we're not hiding, right? We're right there at the threshold. We're right there meeting that place in service to others. And so the backdrop is influencing the awakening. And so where are we? What is the setting in that? Then we're going to look at what. That's going to be the tool that we can use. What tool is available for us to discover or even release so that the new collective destiny, if you will, can unfold. We can call this like the key to the current timeline. And then lastly is the why. This is that deeper mythic purpose of the collective journey as humanity approaches this threshold of a new reality. So let's begin with our who. So this is the archetype leading the shift. So this is the old soul healer. This is the Lightworkers. We've been leading this shift for forever, right? If this is in your blueprint, we have been leading this shift. And it's time even for us to take a look at what needs to shift within ourselves in this now. So again, it's that energy of the old soul healer. And we're going to view it from the animal spirit of the shark and from this octave frequency of cooperation and shared awareness. So this journey begins in that aspect of the self that's most dominant in the story. So it's going to represent the part of you that requires attention. And that's so that we can understand what must shift. So specifically for healers and light workers, this is the inner healer self. and the soul's natural inclination towards service and awakening. That's what our soul was put here to do. At least that was our soul contract for this time frame. And that I am feeling very much within myself is shifting. So this may be an invitation for you as well. So to move forward on this quest, we must fully understand our gifts. Maybe we have new gifts coming online, but it's a remembrance of reclaiming this eternal life force from which we can often drift away, especially when we're doing that close proximity work to that threshold. So when we move through the comfort of, I'll call it forgetting, right? It's that comfort of forgetting where we can slip into that veil of ignorance and denial, especially when we're working close to it, okay? But we want to stay in the reveal of our radiance. It already exists within us. We know this, and so we want to be in that radiant energy. So we already recognize that the healing journey is multi-layered and it is cyclical. It is that cyclone energy, that spinward, that upward spiral. And so the support we need to receive here comes from this animal spirit of the shark. So why is that? What does that shark energy bring? It brings that frequency of directness, of exposure, of revealing truth, and about honesty about what we desire. So the shark's message here is very clear, and it mirrors us back to our current this week, is get clear on what you must shift. So to do this, we're going to look into our depths, and we're going to acknowledge what is creating tension within us. And then, of course, beyond us. So then that's within the collective energy as well. What's influencing us as healers and light workers. So if tension exists, it signals that need to shift. And that requires some radical honesty. And it may be tempting to pretend that nothing's wrong. Healers often try to be optimistic, avoid confronting discomfort, because we're wanting to remain on that light side. So this is those that light workers that have come through the shadows, come through the depths. They really have a balanced masculine, feminine energy. And so then in this, the shark energy asks us to feel that presence about what is circling us and acknowledging it truthfully, because we're not afraid of that shark. Do you know what I mean? So we're not afraid of those depths. So when we potentially could come into imbalance with this, certainly, and that energy can feel like it's sneaking up on us, or that it's destructive or going to destroy us in some way. But we know when it's balanced, we have complete clarity. And so this dominant archetypal energy is our own inner healer and our own light worker self first. And it's asking us to clearly state what we truly desire. And when I circle around this, and go into the depths, always go into the depths of my awareness, I refuse to ignore the energies that surround me. And I honestly view things like a shark in a way. So I want to look deep within my own shadow first, asking with sincerity whether any trace of something lives within me. And what I have discovered is what's circling is envy. And I believe that I have met that with compassion and truth, and I've allowed that to be seen and healed and released within myself. So I still feel that envy is in the collective. And so I'm recognizing and sensing now that it's not just simply personal. It's a collective energy rising to surface for transformation. So this is an example of my desire in this. My desire then is to move beyond this competition and comparison and into this new frequency of community. It's one where individuals stand fully in their power, their new power, their gifts, or the current gifts that they have, while joyfully celebrating the gifts and the brilliance and the contribution of others. That's the energy, the frequency that I can go to, that I live in most. But when I come back into our 3D world, it's not there yet, right? And I'm sure a lot of us are seeing that and feeling that. So it's a desire of this 5D connection where authenticity is honored, where each person's light is known, that it strengthens the whole. It's where the success of one is felt as an expansion for all. So in this, we would uplift and encourage and inspire one another, remembering that our unique expressions aren't meant to compete. They're meant to weave together into this great harmony, this beautiful tapestry of the collective awakening. So I felt in my authenticity, that's what I wanted to share with you right now. So the octave frequency we're working with here then is this collective cooperation. This current also activates that octave of cooperation in our consciousness evolution. So it's going to govern our shared environments, mutual agreements, this quiet cooperation that allows life to function in harmony. So as our human collective awareness expands, we enter partnership with nature and with each other and the elemental world as all this beautiful harmonic relationship, because that's where in its light aspect we'll get respect, we'll get the collaboration and the mutual support that includes Gaia and Earth. Because if it's in its shadow, we know that's a codependent pattern. Anything outside of that is codependency. So we must move forward to bring conscious awareness into our relationships, recognizing that our reality is something we co-create together. Beautiful. So let's look at the where aspect. So this is like the archetype setting of the journey itself. And here we have the energy of the river. The river is the current. And our spirit guide for this is the dragon. And our octave we're working with is authentic expression. So this is our next step, is to determine where we are on the journey. And the collective setting surrounding this awakening as the river, it's the flow of consciousness itself. So let's not judge where we are on the river, because there may be reason we go to one place or another along this flow of consciousness in support of others, right? But we need to be aware of that and what that river represents, which is change, which is rebirth, which is emotional cleansing, and it all carries forgiveness. It's all wrapped around this big hug of forgiveness. And so the river moves us over sharp edges without any resistance. And when we step into it, we know as healers and light workers that we're not about control. We're about allowing new energies of consciousness to guide us. So the waters here reflect back to us this new dreamlike version of the future. It helps us to see ourselves past that threshold, past that barrier, if you will, resistance, or past that edge. And we know that what's there is more grace, more fluidity, more authenticity. And the river knows that, because the river reveals that, the real self. And nothing hides in its reflection. Nothing needs judgment. And so when we're in our highest expression of us as light workers, we know this because we offer acceptance and grace and reflection to others and forgiveness. But just watch where there may be moments where a shadow aspect can arise. It could bring emotional overwhelm for you as a healer and a light worker. it could flood into you as emotions. It could then turn into turbulence. So we want to watch what the river is reflecting back to us. And we have the support of our spirit animal here as the dragon. It supports the journey of the higher awareness because it represents sacred intelligence, the higher self-guidance, our inner fire and inner light. And it reminds us to just witness this consciousness. Okay. So we know our inner dragon, our inner fire, as represented here, has been with us since our first breath, and coming here in this earth plane as earth angels to support this time. And it will remain until our last breath here on earth. So that dragon is here then representing that higher self. And it observes our journey through that external world. So it helps us to navigate because it knows, right? It navigates our inner depths. So through that dragon, we can glimpse the self behind the self, the awareness behind the awareness that is watching us is the self. So practice observing the self. Okay, that's transformative fire. Where we can return after working a rough edge, so to speak. So the dragon then helps us to release any of that past, anything that blocks us from seeing our true self. And we cannot know what we desire or what we must shift unless we truly see ourselves. And we do this through this octave frequency of having an authentic voice. So within the river, we're in that river current, we then become authentic expression. This is where our inner truth seeks movement through voice, play, creative expression. In this space, ideas seek a voice. Feelings invite motion. And so even if we're presented with a collective uncertainty or uncertainty arises in your field, we can use imagination and humor and expansion because we know that those things are possible. We know they exist because we know how to go there. We know how to live in that. So they remain possible right where we are in our present moment. So when we gain authentic expression during those uncertainties, it's where truth then can be shared playfully and honestly. It's not where we're sharing truth to seek approval, okay? So when we are fully in our light aspect with this, we're creative, we're joyful, we're expressive. And watch where you may fall into shadow, where you may be emotionally reacting or where you have suppressed your voice. So without expression, we cannot become clear about what we must shift. So that brings us into the what. This is the tool for this this journey into this shifting and getting clear on what you want. So we're going to look at this through the archetype of the village, which is just like, our tribe or our family or our community or where we're living in our environment. The animal spirit of the stingray and the octave frequency here is going to be the sovereign storyteller. So what is all this showing us? Well, we know that the what is representing that tool, right? Or sometimes it's just the release itself. It's whatever that release is that's required for that collective destiny to unfold. But the key here is the village, because the village can also be tradition or this feeling of belonging. It's the place where we feel most at home, where we feel most comfortable, where the ego wants to settle us into a place. But paradoxically, it is maybe the place we must leave in order to fully step now into our new power, our new destiny, our 5D reality, our growth, right? We must leave sometimes in order to grow. Wherever you are on that that journey. It's fluid. So there exists an unspoken boundary within the village, and many people within your village remain inside for safety and familiarity. Sometimes they may want to project that on you, as certainly as they see you stepping beyond the limits. So we have to look at whenever we feel restricted by community, where family expectations may restrict us, where cultural ideology may restrict us, or social identity. So while the village may have served us in the past, and it will remain forever with us, it's forever present in our soul expansion, we might need to move beyond it, either permanently or for a time being. So, paradoxically though, if we've reached a village or a community where we feel intergenerational support, community connection, and rooted belonging, then we can rest in that and work in that in terms of then what's the next thing that comes to be shifted. But be aware, because in its shadow aspect, you could fall back into those patterns of small-mindedness, of gossip, of restriction, or feeling trapped. So to evolve into higher consciousness, we may need to step beyond that familiar. And when we look at the presence of the stingray here, it supports this transition. The stingray energy is like, it is that choosing point, that choice point. And again, it's a choice. It's okay whenever you're ready to make this choice, but it's that choice between the familiar past and the unknown future. But the stingray, what it does is it teaches inner confidence and self-trust so that we can make that choice point. And when it's balanced, it's eager to make those choices. It feels courageous to make them. And if it's not ready, or if we're not ready, it could fall into blaming something, some external circumstance, or just kind of altogether quitting. So growth requires moving through discomfort, and the dharma of the stingray is too strong to ignore. So if it's showing up for you, it's wanting you to look at this for sure. And then what is it that we're talking about here about this octave frequency of the sovereign storyteller? Well, this is where humanity recognizes itself as the author of its story. So that's a beautiful shift point where people start to realize, right, that they are creating their own realities. And so this octave is going to govern now that person realizing they're a multidimensional being, because their multidimensional perception is awakening. They're getting conscious authorship of their lives, and they're creating their own sovereignty. So it's a tool that's beautifully there, and it's available to everyone to rewrite narratives. And so we don't have to rewrite. We just shine the light on that for others, right? We're not here to do anything. At least that's the shift, right? It's like no longer, you're just shining light on where others can use these gifts and tools to rewrite their own narrative. And you have to be willing to go within yourself and ask which stories within you you're willing, or that you're still telling. Because there are so many repeating old stories. When you really slow down to observe those, it's amazing. So we want to be aware of where we're still telling stories and which stories we need to shift. Because then when we're fully in our power and light aspect with that, we know that there's creative sovereignty, and we know that there's conscious choice, and we know that we're our own creative agents. So now we move into the why, and this is the mythic purpose of this. Why do we want to get clear on what we want to shift? Well, because we're in a storm. This is the archetype of the storm. But we do have support here, so let's take a look. So we arrive at this why, because we're at that growth edge, because we're in that storm. And it does symbolize chaos, upheaval, truth exposure, and transformation. Yeah. Beautiful. Like, I'm so grateful. It's like the tower archetype in the tarot. It dismantles structures that can no longer stand. It's a great equalizer. So no matter our age, our wealth, our wisdom, our spiritual path, or none of that hides us from this storm right now. But the task is to find the eye of it, where the clarity and the meaning become visible to you. So we are supported through an animal spirit guide of the lizard energy. Wow. And the lizard really is so cool. It represents intuition, it's sensory perception, it's subtle energy awareness, and it's dreaming beyond the current reality. Because the lizard sees what has not yet manifested, and it hears what has not yet been spoken. However, it's a very sensitive energy, and so we know this as light workers, as healers. We're sensitive, and so we can become overwhelmed in the chaos of the storm. So lizard is also a reminder to withdraw from overstimulation and notice when, you've worked that edge a little too long, too much. Return to your inner peace, return to some kind of creative expression, because when this is balanced, your spiritual gifts, your telepathy, your co-creation, your artistic sensitivity, it's there, it's vibrant, it's flowing. And if it's getting into an imbalanced state, there may be some confusion that arises, maybe some elusiveness, or just some lack of direction. So be sure to balance and restore through your own creative practice and your own inner listening, whatever that is for you. So the octave frequency here within our why, our purpose, is our heart coherence. That's the 5D, the 5D energy of love, the heart coherence, the deeper purpose for this entire shift. And it's where humanity is moving towards that state where emotional patterns are stabilizing into harmonious alignment with the heart center. And this is where the new earth harmonizes and is born and created. And it's a process. And whenever people choose to enter it, they choose to enter it. If they fall out of it, they fall out of it for a bit. Every day is a new day to start working with this harmonious alignment. And this is the emerging frequency of 5D love. And it's not love that seeks. It's not love that validates or gets validation or seeks anything from others. It's love that arises through your own emotional clarity, your own honesty, your own presence, your own connection to your higher self, your source. It's where nothing ever needs to be hidden for love to remain. So everything can be exposed. The storm exposes the darkest truths because love remains beneath all of it. This is the emotional intelligence becoming embodied wisdom within the 5D frequency of love. So to shift into the new consciousness, we must become clear about what we truly desire. We do that through the honesty of the shark frequency, the flow of the river, the sovereignty beyond our safe zone or the village, or what keeps us in that ego self-safeness. And we awaken now with the storm. And we arrive at the heart of the shift. And at that heart, we discover the truth. Nothing needs to be hidden for love to remain. So much love.